One Piece chapter 1165, Echo. Don't mind my eyes. This chapter broke my heart, so I'm a little choked up. I'm just tired. But either way, chapter 1165, Echo, we're going to break it down. And this is our first reaction to this, right? So this is how I'm feeling initially. I think we should give grace to people that just get into the chapter and they're giving you their thoughts. Sometimes it's raw, right? It's really raw. And you just got to give them grace for that because sometimes things change, right? But right now, let's get raw. Or let's talk about the chapter. Cover story. We see our favorite character, one of my favorite characters, in Law. We see Beppo, we see Zeus. They're having a good time. And you know what I'm hoping when I see this? I hope that Law is having this good of a time right now. I know he's being tormented by Blackbeard, or was being tormented by Blackbeard. The last time we saw him, he managed to get away, right? Managed to barely get away, but I hope Law is resting and relaxing and can bounce back in a major way. Now, first question I have, I asked the chat this when I was live streaming. I need your answer as well. Who do we see first? Do we see Law or do we see Kid first in the story? Remember, Law, he's headed off somewhere. For Kid, if he's not dead, him and his crew, he was off the outskirts of Elbaf. So, you guys think we see first, Law or Kid? First question. Now let's continue to the actual chapter. Chapter starts off the way we wanted it. Garp and Roger versus Rox. And Rox, he's obviously being tormented. He's tormented. He's crying, right? Snot bubbles. And they're like, yo, like, how you're acting doesn't agree or it doesn't match up with your temperament and the things how your face looks. So what's going on? I can imagine being Domi Reversied. It's like he's in a window and he can't control his body. So all he's doing is reacting how he's feeling because he's regretting all of his actions. And I can imagine the pain of not being in control after all those years of being able to control your destiny. And of course, being a D and being a Davy, being all that you are. Rox, the proposed, the king of the world, the heir apparent to the world, because if Davy Jones was the former king, if you being a Davy as well, that is your rightful throne. And at this point, you're being controlled by the same person you were just shit talking. All right. And I'm sure for Rox, it's like, yo, this is painful. Not being able to control your body. I mean, bro, imagine like how we feel when we're on the toilet for too long and our legs get weak. Now we can't get up and now it's wobbly, right? Your foot is asleep. Imagine the pain in that. Now, Domi Reverse is probably times 1,000. It's crazy. I'm just putting myself in his shoes. I'm just saying, maybe that's not what it feels like. It probably feels worse than that. But I'm just saying. But that is painful when he falls asleep. Either way, shout out to Oda. I wasn't sure what we were going to get in regard to choreography and how much of the fight we're going to get. I thought Oda was going to skip around. There was a bit of that, but he got into his bag with this chapter, with them actually going after Rox. We're seeing flurries, we're seeing parries, we're seeing counters. All that is happening in this chapter with Rox, Garp, and Roger. And it's a sight to see. It's a beautiful chapter. We have to really understand the magnitude of what's going on here. We have a Domi Reversied Rox, so a lot of people view it as one of the strongest people ever, if not number one, behind Emu, of course. But I don't know what Emu is. And you have Roger and Garp, right? Two of our legends, and they're fighting in a basically 2v1 on God Valley. And things are breaking, to be expected. The sky's splitting. Silverax, he's ready to go, but he didn't do much of anything. He's living off the clout of being Shiki's rival. And Shiki, he's ecstatic. He's saying, yo, like the Rox parts are done. And I'm like, Shiki, you actively go and seek out these alliances, but I guess he could find thrill or pleasure in seeking out these alliances and then breaking them or ruining them. It seems like Shiki's base at the end of the day is always supreme chaos, and sometimes I can understand that, but it seems like that's what he thrives off of because he was ecstatic. The Rox pirates are over, and you gotta understand when major events happen like that, it's a dopamine rush for him, probably, right? Like, because now it's a major event. Rox pirates are now done for. What's the next pirate group? What happens to the former Rox pirates? What do they go on and do? So for Shiki, maybe just like the change and the chaos, he gets a thrill out of that. I mean, seemingly, right? Garp and Roger, you gotta respect how different they are, but also very similar, where they both call their respective compadres and say, yo, get off the island. I'll meet you somewhere else, but get out of here, because they understand the magnitude of what's actually happening. Now they both, throw off their jackets, throw off their capes, whatever, and they're ready for action, okay? Because they realize Rox is not to be played with. Rox is a real one, and he's big, and he got wings. So you never know what's gonna happen. Garp is the ultimate, I'm gonna say how I'm feeling, and I don't care how silly it sounds. I don't care what it is, I'm just gonna say whatever. Garp says, my intention was to come here and capture you, Roger, and Rox. He's talking to Roger about it, and I'm like, Garp, you thought you were gonna capture Roger and Rox? I 1000% believe Garp, but I think he's crazy. I genuinely think Garp is out of his mind, but that's why this works. And I think even later in the chapter, we're gonna expound upon Garp's kind of simplicity and how the complexity of all the things happening around him adds to his character, because he's just so damn simple. And we love him. I can't help but look at Roger and see Ace, where Ace obviously looked like a young Roger, and that's, I mean, so clear here. And I mean, I think part of it is overly intentional to show like, yeah, this is Roger's kid. But I think thinking of Ace matters, especially towards the end of the chapter. But the choreography is amazing, right? Where Garp and Roger, they're fighting like Luffy and Ace in Marineford, man. They're having combination attacks. They're kind of piggybacking off each other's attacks. And they got Rock stumbling. They sent him flying. I'm like, yo, maybe you guys should be on the same crew, the same team in some way. Either Roger joins the Marines or Garp, you join the Roger Pirates. I don't know. Just throwing an idea out there that, you know, you guys just work really well together. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Again, we're jumping around slightly. Oda wasn't as trigger happy with the jumping around as he typically is, but we get to Scopper and rarely seeing them trying to evade or leave the island saying, yo, nothing's gonna happen, or Roger's not gonna stop fighting until we get away. And then we get to Big Mom and Kaido, and they're still talking about this damn devil fruit. Big Mom, it's not a small thing. She said, yo, Kaido, you owe me a lifelong debt, okay? And she says, Kaido, you've grown bold. But Kaido, listen, Kaido's crazy. I think Kaido's out of his mind. Big Mom says to Kaido, again, you owe me a lifelong debt, right? And that I'm gonna get it back one day. Kaido's like, you're stupid. You lost fair and square. And I'm gonna create a pirate crew. That brutality is the law. And I'm like, Kaido, how did we get here? How did you get here off of what Big Mom just said? Where did that come from? I think Kaido's just, I think he's out of his mind. I think he's genuinely a crazy man or crazy creature. But he's like, yo, Lennon, no, you lost fair and square, which I don't think he's necessarily wrong about that. But if that's big sis, that's big sis. It's just a respect thing. That's all. It's just respect. Because Big Mom even checks it and says, yo, Kaido, you've grown bold, but you'll never be able to beat me. And she says, no matter what, one day I'll come to collect what you owe. And Kaido's like, I'll crush you when that time comes. And we saw Big Mom pull up to Wano and saw Kaido literally screaming for them not to let her up that waterfall, right? Like, yo, don't let her into Wano. So knowing and engaging more of this history, I think is beautiful. But also, I want to say a few months ago, I talked about Big Mom. And I talked about Big Mom still being alive, but Kaido dying. So one of my things was, I think Big Mom or Kaido has not repaid the favor. They're both in the lava right now, right? Let's say they're both faintly alive, pulse low, they're dying. Big Mom now takes the favor. Now Kaido could have initiated it, saying, Big Mom, I'm not gonna make it. You need to get out of here. It could be a reverse where Kaido says it to Big Mom, because he says that Big Mom then gives him some of her soul powers and he lives and she dies. I just feel like Big Mom's story is not resolved. So it makes more sense for Big Mom to get or take some of Kaido's soul and somehow evade the lava. I had an idea while reading this chapter, because I think Big Mom is 1000% going to get her lick back. What about Big Mom using her soul powers to create a homie out of Kaido's soul? So now Kaido is permanently a dragon. So therefore, Kaido is no longer a threat. Kaido could be a lava dragon that Big Mom summons and she uses to ride wherever she wants to. But at that point, Kaido is somewhat, of course, it's somewhat sentient with Kaido's personality, but it's not a threat. It's not the threat that Kaido is. So that's how you keep Big Mom and Kaido alive without making them major threats. I think even with Big Mom, you can limit her and nerf her in some way, because I think I would like to see her story get resolved. I would like to see her understand the impact of her actions and things she did back then. What is the result? What does Big Mom do? I mean, could she go berserk again? So seeing this small interaction with Big Mom and Kaido took me all the way there, and I just had to overshare. We got to talk about Whitebeard. Last chapter, Whitebeard was surprisingly huge topic of discussion, because I said Whitebeard got sent into the mountain. Out of respect, Oda didn't show it, whatever. In this chapter, Oda sent Roger and Garp flying into the mountain by Zebek himself. Both of them. And so this chapter, we see Whitebeard, and then we see this guy at a distance. He's like, yo, you broke the mountain, didn't you? And he's like, your crew's breaking up. Then we see it is Graham, Polo Graham. And, you know, of course, it's a 20-year joke, because Oda, 20 years, Marco, and then now he's saying Polo. But we got to understand, Polo is Graham's last name. His name is Graham Polo. And so Marco's name technically is Marco Dan Polo, right? This guy just hanging around Whitebeard, just waiting to join his crew. I mean, it's super glazed, right? But he got a super glaze. So why? I'm going to stop. I'm gonna quit while I'm ahead. But it's Whitebeard. I understand, but Jesus Christ, Marco's dad was on Whitebeard's crew. Well, I'm assuming Whitebeard gave in because he was as reluctant with Odin. Like he's not. It seems like he's not that type, but he is, right? He's a big softy, and you kind of have to prove your mettle in a way as to why he should let you join. But nah, Graham is like, yo, just let me join, man. Just like Marco. We had mentioned before there was somebody kicking in one of the chapters. They're like, yo, is that Marco? We don't think it's Marco. Oda's just trolling us. No, it was Marco's dad, Polo. No, Graham, right? Just Marco's dad, Graham Polo. Graham, whatever. What? I think the whole concept is beautiful, but now I'm asking questions like, Whitebeard, how much did you know? Did you not know, or did you see? Like, were you willfully just ignoring what you were seeing? Did Graham ever meet Marco? Was he a deadbeat dad as well? Because Marco should be born at this point. So Graham, where's your child? You're a big fan of Whitebeard. Why don't you go be a big fan of your kid? Or make a kid grow up to be a big fan of you? Why was Marco acting like a damn orphan when his dad was around? Is nobody else asking these questions? Now, I don't think his dad was around. Something obviously happened, and then Marco ended up on Whitebeard's ship. But there's no way you don't look at Graham and you don't see Marco and think, yo, that's probably your relative. If you don't think it's his dad, you think that's probably your relative. Or maybe Graham left Marco in Whitebeard's care. Who knows? But that's where we're going off the speculation right now. Things could change, and we gotta give grace for that. Of course, Stussy's looking for Newgate. I was really trying to figure out if Ganzui still had his legs. Now, Oda was trolling last chapter. I'm like, God, does he have his legs? I think he still has his legs. It would have been funny if Shiki took them, though, but I think he still has his legs. We also see Perona's devil fruit being used. So I gotta say this. I adore the concept of having a bunch of random devil fruits that we've seen before, or things we've seen before in God Valley, because I think God Valley is just a major catalyst for a lot of the major players in the world, or that was in the world, not too long ago. Like a lot of them have kind of fallen off due to the effects of Monkey D and Luffy, but you gotta acknowledge those legends in those times, and I think there are levels to it. I think for Ganzui and Wangji and those guys, Shiki, they're one level, but there's a tier above that, and we just gotta acknowledge those guys. I think the person that impressed me the most this chapter, was a lot of impressive things, was Monkey D. Dragon. I've been defending Dragon for a while, and it's not necessarily from slander, it's more from lack of understanding, where a lot of people was comparing Dragon to Luffy and of course to Garp, because they're more radicalists, right? They're more willing to do something that could be viewed as wrong, flat out, but they're doing it for the right reason. Yet Dragon, this is worse than anything we've ever seen from Garp or Luffy, because Dragon, he's a new cadet. He has the gun at his superior's head, and he's saying, bring the survivors aboard, and if anybody has a problem with that, he'll execute them. So he is actively taking a stance. I mean, bro, at this point, you gotta acknowledge that Dragon is one of those guys, because the intention is there. Insubordination, mutiny, attempted murder. It's like Dragon is breaking so many laws here just because of what he believes in. It is masterful. It is masterful for his character that it doesn't matter. Like, we've gotten to the point, it's so far gone that I don't care what happens to me. But these people need to be saved. And that's what we wanted from a lot of Marines, most of the Marines, to kind of stand up and say no. Right? How many of them would we need to stand up and say no for things to change? And I think that's essentially what Dragon's doing here. And it's like, yo, do you understand the magnitude of this? W's for Big Dragon, man. If you're still a detractor, I don't know what to tell you. You're not reading. They even threatened Dragon and say, yo, this won't end well for you. Dragon's like, all right, bring it on. I'm ready. And I believe he is. That's just the type of person Dragon seems to be. Some people are saying it's disappointing. We don't really see Rayleigh or Scopper in any really major fight. We saw Somers get dismantled pretty easily by Rayleigh, so people want a challenge for some of the Roger Pirates. We gotta remember, these are top 1% guys. These guys are just massively powerful, so I don't look at Somers any differently. I just think Rayleigh is just that guy. I think Scopper as well in this arc wasn't a lot of agency. They were there, but they weren't. At the end of the chapter, towards the end of the chapter, you see them running towards somewhere or someplace. I would like for this to be a Scopper versus Somers moment, and Rayleigh could go after somebody else, but we have to understand the history behind Somers, because he was, he damn near screamed Scopper's name. So maybe they get into some action and we see some from those guys. But man, the World Government, they are despicable, because no matter how much they mess up, how they clean it up? They just destroy the island. They erase its existence, and it's never existed before. And it's just like, bro, what? And we know that's the case because God Valley no longer exists. right? So we know that's the route they were going, but seeing it play out is honestly despicable. The God Valley incident, based on what the narrator is saying, is that it was covered up. The site, the powers, what happened, all of it was covered up. And so I think at this point with God Valley, it's on another level. As far as legend status, it is crazy. But I think hiding the casualties and purging the system and the record, I think that has something to do with Garp, right? Which I'll talk about a bit later. I know we've had several conversations about Garp and what he should do, what he shouldn't do, morality, being honorable, being a good person. But I think this chapter adds some more context that validated how I felt even back at Marineford about Garp, and even more so now because he generally makes the correct decision. But let's talk about Roger and Garp really quickly. Roger's trying to call out Garp's hypocrisy, saying, yo, if you know about that black blob, how are you here? Like, how are you still a part of this? And if you want to, leave them and join, you can join my crew. And Garp says, I can't. Who's going to protect the Marines? And, talking to some people, man, I got some brilliant insight and bounce ideas off each other because it's a vague statement. I think it's on purpose, but how do you feel about it? That's essentially what is asking. He says, if he quits, who would protect the Marines? What does that look like? Protect it, obviously, from the world government, but what does protection look like? Are you actively standing against them? Are there stipulations as far as how many, the rank you can go after, how many people, etc.? So that's the thing with Garp and protecting the Marines. What about the Marines that don't believe in you, the Marines that don't respect you? Are you still gonna protect them from the world government? And again, also, how much can you do? However, I side with Garp because at the end of the day, it is standing up for what's right, and it is also being a deterrent. I think Monkey D. Garp walking into that building, declining the admiral position, being a vice admiral, going wherever you want to do, chilling in the pool on an afternoon, that's scary for them because it is control that they don't have over somebody like Garp, and Garp being the hero of the Marines, being as strong as he is, it is a constant reminder that, yo, I'm going to stand for the Marines no matter what. Now, I would like more of a declaration in front of Emu, right, which will come. So it's kind of at the point with Garp that we just overwhelmingly respect him, right? I think the fraud allegations are beaten. Now, I still have Dragon and his intention on a completely different scale because first, Dragon doesn't have the strength right now, but he has the attitude, the wherewithal, and the want and the care for these people. Not saying Garp doesn't have these things, but Garp at this point is steadfast in how he's been Dragon. He's just coming along, and man, you gotta respect Dragon and how he's going about things. And, of course, Garp as well. We get some haki stuff. Now, I don't think it is overly intricate haki stuff. They're talking about mass, right? Because Roger says Armin can counter devil fruits, right? I'm using Conqueror's coding. So in one way or another, Emu's getting hurt, right? That's what Roger's telling Garp. Emu's getting hurt. I know it. Like, I'm doing all these different attacks. There's no way that Emu is okay. And of course, Garp gets up. But I think at the end of the day, it's a conversation that they're both having, and they're trying to figure out an appropriate strategy in how to implement it. Because he talks about Conqueror's haki, coding, and Garp gives an explanation to his thought process. And he says, well, it's also because he's using Conqueror's haki to guard himself, so it's canceling out. And for them, they thought if we don't overcome it, the damage won't go through. So essentially saying like, all right, we both have Conqueror's haki or advanced Conqueror's haki, advanced Conqueror's coding. If we go after someone that also has Conqueror's coding, our two gotta overpower their one for it to make an amazing impact. And so I do like this conversation. I don't think this is more haki based. I think it's more strategy and what to do. So they're just kind of talking through things, because it's one of those situations where for Garp and Roger, this might be one of the first times they work together, if not the first time. And because Garp is against it. Roger is as well, but One Piece. I'm appreciative of the mass explanation. I think Oda could build off of that for sure. And they're talking about how at this point in the fight, we can channel everything into that one last attack to overcome rocks, right? Because that's what we have to do to overcome his Conqueror's coding. So Oda is giving us simple breakdowns, simple explanations, but they are necessary. So I can appreciate that. The goal is now to use the mass, right? Use the mass that you have and land it on Emu and kind of deal with the consequences. But they're talking to Emu, even if I say Ace, even Roger's tearing up a bit because, I mean, man, this guy's been through a lot. The guy's been through a lot, and we have to put him down, right? That's our responsibility. So it's tough. love the names of the attacks, where of course Ace being a part of Roger's attack is beautiful, and Garp having burning fists on fire is amazing. And I love what the narrator said, because the narrator says, the disbanding of the chaotic crew led by Roxy Zebek would leave an undeniable echo. The Rocks pirates destabilized an entire area, and the tremors of their legacy would continue to shake the world, right? Even before that, the world government tried their best to bury this incident in the shadows. However, the Rocks pirates, they disbanded, and so that left an echo. Now, I think the world government, they're trying to bury this history because of the outrage that Garp made when he got back. Even Sengoku, where they're like, yo, we have to be a bit more strategic. You have to be a bit more better. And the whole idea of hiding this is because of Garp, and Garp challenging the powers that be, Garp being the deterrent, Garp walking around that base, those bases, chest high, right, shoulders back, just letting them know that I don't care, and if need be, I will go against you guys. Now for Garp, philosophically, I would like to get more about his character. I would like to have more conversations, or see more conversations when we talk about mass, how that can be manipulated. For haki, Conqueror's coding, the levels of it, right? How far can we go? Can we take it much higher? And so I think there's a necessity for Garp in the Marines, but I do enjoy Roger kind of pulling his card and checking him like, yo, Navy, you know, Marines, like what are we doing here? That black blob was killing both. Like, this is your justice. And Garp steps up. Garp steps up right away. And of course, it's a lot because the world government is just in shambles. And Garp is manually trying to fix it. And it's no perfect way, but you got to give props to Garp and Roger. Those attacks are amazing. Kagosuchi's ace, and then Infinitum Explosion. Garp is just one of them. Roger's just one of them. Whitebeard is one of them because of the credit that he's getting now, because of how people see how Rocks did Garp and Roger initially, because some people feel like Whitebeard, it wasn't the same thing, because I mean, it's not even explained well here. I just think it just makes sense for Whitebeard to get sent as well, because if Rock sent Roger and Garp and wasn't able to send Whitebeard, I mean, that Whitebeard, man, but we know Whitebeard's special, so this is one of them things. Guys, let me know your thoughts, though. How do you feel about the chapter? How do you feel about Garp? Kid-in-Law, who shows up first? Rocks. This is the end of Rocks. He is no more. I thought we'd get like a more fitting conclusion to his end. We just saw the attack landing, and that's it. I mean, for the most part, that could be it, but I don't know. We'll see. But guys, give me your thoughts. Make sure to like the video if you did. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Follow me on Twitter, Brogity. Follow me on Instagram at Brogity.ace. Thank you to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Again, guys, like, subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.